If you've been feeling into a doubting Thomas energy inside you, then you're really picking up on the planetary picture at the moment. We've got a few restrictive squares going on. And in fact, we've got three very exact squares happening in this week ahead. We've also got one of the aspects that I really covet and look forward to every year, and that's Venus coming into a conjunction with Jupiter on Tuesday the 9th. Now, this is, I see it as the two benefics coming together, like beautiful lovers coming in for a kiss. To me, this is an invitation. It's a blessing. It's a gift. It's a time to come into a feeling of optimism about wealth or beauty or love or just feeling good, really. These two are creating a seed point of sorts. They are creating a sense that there's something coming up. There is something beneficial that you're planting in your life. It's an opportunity for later. And I also see it as a beautiful choice point as well, where you might choose to believe in your luck. And that would be good if that's what we were really feeling into in this week ahead. However, we have got some other things going on. So on the Wednesday, the 10th, we've got Mercury going into a square with Saturn across the cardinal signs. Mercury's ahead of Saturn. Mercury's moving faster than Saturn. This is an opening square, really showing that on this journey of discernment between these two planets, that we're hitting a stone in the road. It feels, maybe I'm discerning things incorrectly. Maybe I didn't quite set off on this journey with the right mindset. It's almost bringing in some doubts because you're thinking, how did I get that wrong? How did I misinterpret that? So that's quite a strong energy coming up on Wednesday. We've also got on Friday, the 12th, we've got a square between Uranus and the North Node. And that also makes Uranus in a square to the South Node as well. This is actually known as a skipped step in astrology. When we have one planet exactly at the midpoint between the two nodes, it's really indicating something karmic going on. Now, this probably isn't actually happening exactly in your birth chart right now. This is something that's happening in our collective astrology. So this is like a collective skipped step. This is something that we've forgotten to do in our evolution. There is something, maybe a choice, maybe something to do with our independence that we have got stuck on. We haven't chosen to honor our own need for independence. To me, this is a fork in the road. This is an invitation to recognize that the path you are on is maybe unexpectedly different to the one you're really going on. To me, this is really showing us that there's some new change. And have we been bypassing change? Have we been skipping change to keep to what's known and what we understand? And then finally, on Saturday the 13th, we've also got a square between Venus and Chiron. Again, this is an opening square. Here, Venus has moved on somewhat from Chiron, where she came into a conjunction with Chiron earlier this year. And Venus and Chiron in a conjunction together is really talking about self-forgiveness. This was the start of a self-forgiveness journey. And again, there's a stone in the road. There is something that's just getting us off our path. And my questions to you this week are you ready to receive love? Are you ready to receive the benefits? Do you feel worthy enough to receive the good that's coming? And so that really brings me back to the earlier premise for Tuesday the 9th, as Venus comes into a conjunction with Jupiter. Are you ready for something great? Are you ready for this invitation, this blessing? So yeah, this week ahead has a whole heap of very sort of contradictory energies. So what I want to do in this short video is just talk you through some of the biggest influences, how they're likely to fit and hit, and what you might find helpful to navigate this time. What questions can you ask yourself? What thoughts might help you manage these energies in such a way that you don't miss this opportunity that's coming up, and that you understand why you might be doubting yourself? So this is about getting underneath the pattern. What's also important is actually at the end of this week, in fact, on Monday, the 15th of June, there is going to be a new moon at 24 degrees in the sign of Gemini. So if you know what your chart looks like, your exact birth chart, and if you haven't drawn yours up, you're not too late. You can easily do it for free. All you need to do is go to www.astro.com. That's ASTRO.com. And you can set up a free guest profile. And all you need to do is put in your date of birth, place of birth, and time of birth, hit enter or find my Astro or whatever it is, and it will bring your birth chart up. And what you need to do is look out. These are the two things I recommend looking out for. And the first one is to see where 25 degrees in the sign of Cancer sits in your birth chart. So the sign for Cancer it's a blue symbol and it looks like a 69. Not the sexual position, but the number. It looks like two sixes lying sort of spooning head to foot. And you want to look to see where 25 in the sign of Cancer is. And I also think it's worthwhile seeing where 24 in the sign of Gemini is. Now, the sign for Gemini looks like two orange columns with a top and a tail. It's like a boxed in orange shape. But these 2 degrees, 24 Gemini and 25 Cancer, they're really sensitive points over the coming weeks. Now, this one in Cancer, this is a seed point that's happening on Tuesday the 9th. There's the yearly conjunction where Venus comes together with Jupiter. They're at the same degree. And this is an opportunity for you to look at all the things that are beneficial in your life, all the things that feel like a blessing, all of the things that feel like an opportunity. Like Jupiter is the planet to do with our expansion and our growth and our excitement and our optimism and our comedy, like what lifts us up and what makes us laugh, what makes us feel really alive. Jupiter goes on a bit of a quest. He loves to explore things. Jupiter is interested in so many things. And he's also very much about faith and also beliefs. And also, funnily enough, in the sign of Cancer, he's seen as being exalted. He's super strong. And so he is absolutely being brought the best out of at the moment. Everything to do with your faith in life, your trust in life, your ability to feel comforted, protected. That's really being emphasized on Tuesday. When Venus comes in, she's bringing her natural ability to flow, her natural connection to other people, that feeling of ease and grace and joy to be connected with other people. Venus is bringing this sense of love and serenity and also a feeling of abundance in. Both of these planets are planets to do with abundance and flow and feeling good. So this is a real feel-good conjunction. Literally, it's a feel-good conjunction. And in the sign of Cancer, it's emphasizing everything to do with your roots, your family, your home. But there's an extra meaning as well. So if you look at your birth chart, you'll see that in the center of all these birth chart images, there are a series of numbers going around. These are the numbers for the houses. And it's really important that you check out to see where 25 Cancer is in your chart, because it might be in the 7th house, it might be in the 10th house, it might be in the 1st house, say, or even the 4th house. Whichever house 25 Cancer falls in is a house that is bringing up opportunities for you. So all you need to do is go to Google or AI or whatever search engine you prefer to use and ask, what does the Jupiter and Venus conjunction in my 8th house mean? What opportunities are there for me? And that'll give you a much bigger explanation. But ultimately, this is about the blessings in your life. This is where your blessings are coming from. How can you maximize them? How can you be ready for them? If they're in the 4th house, this is absolutely about blessings at home. How can you really feel that sense of serenity at home? Everything is coming together beautifully. In the 10th house, you might have that feeling in terms of your career. And in that feeling of relaxation and joy, and that feeling of blessing, and that feeling that actually things are moving in the right direction, you might get that killer idea that just comes in, and that's the thing that you're going to start working on. This is a fantastic time to start a project. When Venus and Jupiter come together, they are showing that there's a certain amount of luck associated with anything that starts there. So a great time to start something that really means something to you, that really means something to do with your well-being and feeling good in general. So it should be celebrated, and it goes really quickly. Now, in a previous video, I think the one I did for Venus and Jupiter last year, I was mapping out all of the different interactions that Venus and Jupiter make over the course of the year. I think I will do something about this. I think I'll release something on Monday about it, because Venus is basically starting her journey with Jupiter on the 9th. And then because she moves so much faster, she goes a whole lap around the zodiac, and then she meets up with Jupiter. Jupiter just moves through one sign each year. So they're always meeting up once a year a little bit further into the zodiac. But during that time, Venus is going to make, when she's exactly 60 degrees away from Jupiter, that's part of the sort of hero's journey of blessings, where things are going well. When she's 90 degrees away from Jupiter in a square, that's what we call it, things are a little bit tense. We get a little bit of a jolt. We get a little bit of a reminder that we're maybe not as omnipotent as we thought, that things do go wrong sometimes. Things aren't always feeling like a blessing. We might have to just change our direction somewhat. And we can go through the whole series of positions between Venus and Jupiter, and it will describe your project for the year ahead. It's worth mapping, actually. So this is an important point, and I highly recommend that you see where it is in your chart. Now, the other degree that I gave you is 24 degrees in the sign of Gemini. This is where the next new moon is coming up, and it's just over a week away. Now, new moons are those moments every month that happen where we have a chance to consider what it is we're building in our world, or what we're starting. What are we feeling new about? What are we feeling fresh about? And this new moon is in the sign of Gemini, and Gemini is a sign associated with learning, but also with friendships, with the movement of ideas, social gatherings and entertainment, and what's local to us, what makes us feel good locally. It's also about our siblings, because Gemini is absolutely childlike a little bit. It might remind us of what we were doing several years ago in our teens. Gemini brings us a little bit of life and a little bit of mobility, and it will be starting off the next waxing moon phase. And so it's worth also knowing where the next new moon is, and you've got it. If you know which house this is falling in, again, it's worth doing a quick check on your favorite search engine. What does the new moon in Gemini put in what house it is, and then it will give you an idea on what you might choose to work on. These little prompts are really helpful because it just shows the landscape for the next month ahead with the new moon, and actually the next year ahead with your prized projects. So that's underlying, that's what's coming in, this feeling of a new project, a new direction, and also what freshness are you about to bring in again. Now, after this, we've got 3 squares that are going to challenge us a little bit, because no real journey ever goes that smoothly. And often we have lots of different things happening at the same time. So the planets are always on the move, and all of these planets are going at different speeds to each other. And so they're all like, it's a bit like if you have an analog clock with 2 hands, you've got the minute hand and the hour hand. In fact, you've got a hand for every different planet, and they're all going at different speeds and describing different times in the planetary energy. So on the 10th, Mercury coming into an exact square with Saturn is really making us question our reality. Mercury and Saturn, when they come together, they're always asking us about whether we've been too remiss with our details, if we've been checking things. Where can we be more thorough? Where can we be more examined? Where can we really consider truths, consider options, consider facts, and make an educated decision? And in this square, Mercury, it feels like you're wanting to maybe move a bit too fast, and yet Saturn's slowing us down. To me, this is just saying you need to double check everything. And this is where I think Tuesday's feeling of, yeah, this is good, I'm getting off to a new start. And soon after, you're thinking, hang on a second, did I actually do everything right in the first place? Is this too good to be true? Have I dreamt this? Did I check this? It's almost saying you cannot trust your own good luck. And so this can be quite stressful, especially if you're just committing to something. So watch out for that. Watch out. The question I would ask yourself around midway through the week is, where is my need for detail destroying my natural creativity and my natural flow? Where is my need to have everything measured and making sense and itemized and written in some kind of rule book? Where is my need for things to be so rational, killing my innate creativity and killing my joy and killing my passion? Because that's what this square is doing. And at the same time, it's also giving you a bit of a bollocking. It's saying, you were too lax, you were too relaxed there. Stop dreaming. You're dreaming way too big. And so it's a real sort of push me, pull you kind of energy going on between the 9th and the 10th, from feeling quite expanded and feeling really quite open to then closing down and wanting everything to be evidenced and proven. So they're working very much at a different pace. And then obviously we've got a change of moon, because the moon is moving every couple of days. So at the beginning of this week, I should say, let me just move to a different chart. When we start this week ahead, we've actually got the moon in the sign of Pisces. And like the start of the week is actually quite dreamy anyway. The moon in Pisces is absolutely about going to different places in our emotions, not being so regimented in our feelings. We might be feeling very compassionate all of a sudden, and then very doubtful, and then very dramatic. The moon in Pisces really feels everything. And a little bit like tofu, when you're cooking, it picks up the flavors of everything. The moon in Pisces absolutely picks up the flavors of the people around you. That sounded odd. Choose your energy really wisely going into Monday. And of course, just as Venus and Jupiter are coming together, we've got the moon going into the sign of Aries, and that's going to bring in a much more determined feeling. So it's almost like Monday is part of the decision-making process. It leaves us wide open to consider things and to dream things into reality. In fact, just before this happens, we've got this lovely moon making a trine to both Venus and Jupiter, which really links in our emotions to what good we might want to create in the world. Tuesday into Thursday, the moon is going to be largely in the sign of Aries, and that's when we're feeling a lot more determined, and we're not going to be suffering fools gladly. That fits the picture actually with Saturn and Mercury on Wednesday the 10th, because Saturn and Mercury, they're going to be looking for evidence, and the moon in Aries doesn't want to faff around. It just wants the facts. It doesn't want the story. It wants the facts, and it wants to snap at you if you're telling a story. It's get to it. Stop your stories. Yeah. And yes, on Friday the 12th, we've got this energy between Uranus and the North and the South Node. This formation is known as a T-square. Uranus is at the center point at 90 degrees, and you've got the North and South Node always in opposition to each other. Now, this is showing that we've always had our internal plan. We've always had this kind of unconscious internal plan on how we might feel free, how we might feel independent, how we might feel very connected to our soul and our destiny. I always think of Uranus as a planet of consciousness, which is really helpful because Uranus really does activate the higher mind. It really does get us tuning into something outside of the very terrestrial thinking patterns that we might well have developed and actually practice with this Mercury and Saturn square. But Uranus is here to really take us above the human concern and much higher up. It's like we're lifting ourselves out of our personal timeline and looking down on things, getting a third party perspective, which is often helpful for us to get a much better perspective. And so Uranus, I guess what's really going on Friday is we've got a much broader perspective to examine. And this is where you might be saying, has my need for safety kept me away from opportunities? Has my need for tradition and has my need for having everything laid out and understood and making sense, has that stopped my life from really evolving? And so this does feel like a fork in the road moment. This feels like a time when you might just say, oh my God, I made a mistake. I really do need to follow my heart and follow that yummy Venus and Jupiter energy that's really coming on the 10th. So yeah, I think these two are really working for you to free yourself up and to maybe take a risk. Again, these are just serving suggestions. I'm not telling you this is what you should do. I'm absolutely not telling you to take any risks with anything unless it feels like it's part of your plan. Now, coming into Saturday is an interesting day because we've got a real scene change. First of all, Venus is making a square to Chiron, and This is likely to bring up a sensitivity about your value and bring up a sensitivity about whether you're worthy enough. That's, for most of us, is a very sort of perennial thing. Perennial suggests it only happens once a year. Maybe it's a mensual, like it's a monthly thing. This is menstrual even. Venus, from an astrological perspective, Venus and Chiron don't go into a square with each other every month, but we might get that feeling where we test ourselves and we might have these dips in our self-worth and really wonder, have I really learnt to honor myself? Have I learnt to have confidence about myself? But this is a yearly thing. In fact, it happens twice a year, actually, this kind of square between Venus and Chiron. And Venus is reminding you of your journey to be forgiving and loving towards yourself. And in these moments, and this is happening on Saturday the 13th, and you'll most likely feel it coming into this, you might realize that one of the reasons why you haven't stuck to your wilder path, I was talking about with Uranus, maybe why you've doubted your reality with this Mercury and Saturn square, it's because you're not honoring yourself. If you really valued yourself, wouldn't you get it all in perspective? Wouldn't you say, hang on, I'm being a bit rational here. My only tool in my toolbox right now is rationality. And when you're measuring yourself with somebody else's ruler that has been agreed by everybody around you in some kind of narrative, you're turning yourself into a robot. And these are not the times to be robots. But of course, if you're a human being, and then being reminded that actually some of the ways you've kept yourself safe is to make some robotic decisions and make decisions that make financial or rational or just everyday common sense, you might realize that has not honored my need for love. That's not honored my need for trusting myself. That's not honored me as a human being. And I think this is what's coming up on Saturday 13th. It's reminding you of your pledge to yourself. It's reminding you that you are a human being, and human beings and the rational world, we've made a peace with it. A lot of people are managing their lives in a very sort of rational way and making it work, but it tends to work for a period of time, and then everyone needs a break or everyone needs a holiday, or we might have an illness or something. I don't think the rational work and being human works on a complete long distance trajectory. There's usually a few pit stops along the way. In England, we call them an MOT, where you go and you get your car tuned up. And that happens with us. We need to tune ourselves up again and again because it doesn't always feel that natural. Whereas when we're being our playful selves, which is a very human thing, when we remember to play, we don't need to get tuned up again because we're already in that natural tuning. So I think Saturday the 13th is reminding you how far you've come off your human blueprint, if that makes sense. And that absolutely dovetails in with Uranus's square with the North Node. In fact, the T square with the North Node, that's really emphasized. Now, the last thing that I really see that's affecting our planetary picture in this week ahead would be Venus going into the sign of Leo. So I just want to speak a little bit about that. Venus changes signs roughly every month. She does every 18 months. She goes retrograde. And so things slow down a little bit. And she's going to go retrograde later on this year. We've got Venus in the sign of Leo from the 13th of June to the 9th of July. And here's what to look out for. So Venus is a planet, like I mentioned, about flow and about connection with others. And I always think of receivership. She is a planet of love, flow, abundance, well-being, allowance, and relatedness. But when I said receivership, to me, that is allowance. Are you in allowance for your good? Do you allow your good to come to you? Do you stand in the way of it? Do you argue for your bad luck? Do you argue for things going wrong? Do you argue for everything? Oh, what's the phrase? Oh, yeah. Do you argue for your limitations all the time? When someone comes in and says, hey, there's some great stuff coming, are you like, yeah, I don't believe you? Or, when someone says, oh, yeah, there's some great stuff coming up, are you like, yeah, but, oh, it's already good, but butting yourself a lot? Because if you're butting yourself, you're really not in the flow with Venus. You're really in that sort of doubting place. And of course, you're not in allowance. Venus is teaching us allowance. because it's really hard to relate to something when we're at odds with it. So she's really teaching us allowance. And in the sign of Leo, Leo is I think, a very allowing of sign. Sure, it does get a little bit pridey. There's a lot of pride, natural pride, and fixated pride with Leo. That's one of its shadow sides. It can get a little bit dramatic. But ultimately, Leo is a sign that's meant to be joyful, creative, playful. There's a lot of performance with the theme of Leo. It loves to be seen and recognized. It really celebrates life and practices self-worth. And so Venus going into the sign of Leo at the end of this week is reminding us to be warm-hearted and generous and romantic and confident. It's reminding us to be self-expressive and passionate, and to be loyal to the people that we love, and to be loyal to ourselves. There's a certain amount of glamour. Venus in Leo does like to look really great, loves being recognized, loves feeling that radiance that comes with love. One thing that really strikes me with Venus in Leo is there's a certain amount of vulnerability. Leo is a sign that allows things to come to them. They're allowing themselves to receive. And they will actually, like, the Leo energy in general is usually saying, I deserve this. And it makes itself very vulnerable saying that. Not many people are comfortable saying, I absolutely deserve that. I'm good enough for that. It takes a lot sometimes, especially if you've coming from my British background. There's a real kind of humility, and I think, is it fake humility? I don't know. There's this almost embarrassment about saying I need something. There's this hesitancy to receive. Some cultures are better at it than others. And so this kind of goes against Venus and Leo together. And during this sort of next few weeks, we might also find some of the shadow sides of Venus in Leo coming out, where we, especially if we struggle to receive, we might be over giving to be loved. We might have a fear of rejection, and we might seek our self-worth through a partner or an idea. And when it goes really wonky, we might be envious of other people's good fortunes. There's a lot of sort of attention seeking. There's a lot of validation on the negative side. One way of thinking about this, and this is a good mantra to have during this time, is I allow myself to receive as generously as I give. So then you're really getting that reciprocity back, which really works with Venus, which really gets that allowance and relatedness going. And it absolutely works with that sort of open-hearted Leo energy. So all in all, then, we're ending the week in quite a good state. Venus going into Leo is reminding us that actually we are human. We do need to sometimes make a decision, and sometimes there's a fork in the road, and we have to stand with self. We have to be okay to say, I do deserve to have a great life, and I'm prepared to allow a good life to come in. So yeah, as I'm looking at this, I'm asking, where am I arguing for my limitations? Where is my self-doubt? Yeah, butting myself and taking myself out of making a new and brilliant and great decision. And this is probably just coming from your safety mechanisms. It's come from a good place. Venus in Leo is really sunlighting you as opposed to gaslighting. People, I think, get quite upset when you might say things are actually better than you might imagine. What if your life could get really good? And people might say, you're gaslighting me. You're trying to persuade me out of a reality that I'm living in right now. But what if your perspective and your doubt is what is creating your reality? What if somebody's gaslight is actually a sunlight? They're trying to shine the sun into your life so you can see it. And I absolutely think Venus in Leo is giving us a well-deserved little drop of sunlight. As we come to the end of the week, the moon goes into Gemini, and then we're really coming into land for that beautiful new moon on Monday the 15th. So I hope that's been helpful for you in understanding the aspects over this week ahead. If you want to hear more, on a 5 days a week, I do a little forecast where I include more of the moon movements, the very sort of subtle things that change from day to day. If you would like to do that, then just come and join my community for free. It's www.school, that's SKOOL.com/Feel Good Astrology. Of course, you can also scan the QR code just above my head. Alternatively, if you'd like me to pay this kind of attention to your own chart, your own story, then just invite me to work with you. Underneath all of my videos, there's a link to my Calendly booking place. So anyway, have a beautiful week ahead. Enjoy that beautiful Venus and Jupiter conjunction. And yes, look forward to catching up with you real soon. Lots of love. Bye for now.